You've probably heard a ton about turning physical things like buildings or art, you name it, into digital tokens. But how does that actually work? How do you take something solid, something real, and turn it into a secure, tradable asset on a blockchain? Well, that's the fascinating process we're going to break down today.
So yeah, that's the big question we're tackling. We're going right under the hood to see the mechanics that could totally reshape how we own valuable stuff.
We're going to break this whole thing down into 4 key steps. Stick with me, and by the end, you'll see the entire journey, from a physical object to a digital investment.
All right, so our journey surprisingly doesn't start with code or blockchains. Nope, it starts right here in the real world. The first, and you could argue the most important step, is choosing the right asset.
Look, the absolute foundation of this entire process is trust. You just can't tokenize a vague promise. The asset has to have a value you can actually verify, a super clear record of ownership, and of course it has to pass all the legal and compliance checks. It doesn't matter if it's a skyscraper or a priceless piece of art, the groundwork has to be perfect.
It's a perfect analogy. Think about preparing a house for sale. I mean, you wouldn't buy a house without seeing the deed and a proper appraisal, would you? The exact same principle applies here. All that paperwork has to be absolutely flawless to make sure the digital token is built on a rock-solid, trustworthy foundation.
All right, so once the real-world asset is all checked out and verified, it's time for step 2, creating its digital twin. This is the magic moment where that real-world foundation gets its digital identity.
So let's get real for a sec. What is a token? The best way to think of it is as a digital certificate of ownership. It's logged on a blockchain, that super secure, transparent public ledger, which means nobody can mess with it. And here's the crucial part. It can represent just a tiny piece of the entire asset.
And this is where it gets really powerful. Imagine a $500,000 apartment building. With tokenization, you can slice its value into 500,000 tokens, each worth just $1. All of a sudden, an investment that was completely out of reach for most people becomes incredibly accessible.
And you got to remember, a token isn't just some number floating in the digital ether. No way. It's a whole package of rights. Embedded right inside that digital certificate is your proportional share of the property, your ownership rights, and even the rules for how you get paid, like say, your cut of the monthly rent.
Okay, on to step 3. This is where we bring in the brains of the operation, smart contracts. These are basically self-executing contracts where all the terms are written directly into the code, and trust me, they are a total game changer. I mean, just think about the old way of doing things, right? You had manual profit collection, middlemen taking a cut, and constant potential for delays. Smart contracts, they get rid of all of that. Payouts are automated, they're direct, and they're instant because it's all just handled by the code. So, let's go back to our apartment building. Let's say it brings in $2,000 in rent this month. The smart contract automatically figures out every single token holder's share and zips the funds directly to their digital wallets. No phone calls, no paperwork, no waiting around. It just happens.
Okay, quick recap. We've picked the asset, we've created the tokens, and we've programmed the rules. Now for the grand finale, step 4. This is where we bring these tokens to life in a dynamic digital marketplace.
Now, these tokens don't just sit around gathering digital dust, right? They get listed on specialized marketplaces. Platforms like Ondo Finance and Centrifuge are basically the stock exchanges where investors can trade these assets 24/7. This creates liquidity, which is just a fancy way of saying you can easily buy or sell your share without the massive headache of trying to sell the entire physical asset. And of course, every single transaction is transparently recorded on the blockchain for everyone to see.
Honestly, the absolute best way to wrap your head around this is to think of it like a stock market, but for real-world things. Instead of trading shares of a company, you're trading fractional ownership of a specific building, or a piece of art, or even a collection of fine wines. It's that direct and that powerful.
And boom, there you have it. We started with a physical building and have now successfully transformed it into a liquid, transparent, and easily tradable digital token. The whole journey complete.
So, let's just run through that journey one more time super quick. First, we start with selection and verification in the real world. Then, we do the digitization and fractionalization to create the tokens. After that, we embed all the rules using smart contracts. And finally, we bring it all to life on a trading marketplace.
So you might be thinking, okay, that's cool, but why is this such a big deal? Because this is a revolution in how we think about ownership.
It makes valuable assets way more accessible. It makes the whole process transparent, and it makes investments far more liquid. You're no longer stuck with an asset until you find one single buyer for the whole thing.
So now you've got the how. You understand the mechanics behind it all. But what does this actually mean for you as an investor? What are the real opportunities here and the risks? Well, we're going to dive deep into all of that in our next explainer.
So I'm going to leave you with this one final thought to chew on. As this technology keeps evolving, and pretty much anything of value can be tokenized, what would you want to own a piece of first? A vintage sports car? A share of a Hollywood blockbuster's profits? A single perfect diamond? The possibilities are, well, they're pretty much endless.
That was day 2. Tomorrow, we will cover why tokenized assets are the future of investing. Click to the subscribe button so you don't miss day 3.